Hello there. I am so glad to see you tonight. I'm Kat Hobson. I'm your host for tonight, and you are listening to Fate Mag Radio. But that is so not true. You are listening to Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. Apparently, my brain is still on vacation, and my producer is having a stroke behind the scenes. So he's actually falling out of his chair laughing, but that's okay. Um, y'all all know Carl. You know he's laughing at me. Now, I'm going to tell you that I was the best vacation with the best girlfriends that anybody could ever hope to have. And I am so appreciative to Rick McCollum for filling in for me for 2 Sundays. I told him he couldn't do it all the time, but he was wonderful. And I hope you enjoyed him. I know his show with Carl Sunday I got to listen to, and that was fun. And Rick was like, Carl's really cool. I said, yeah, he really is. So he was so excited about that. Um, I was really torn about what to do tonight because I had such a good time, and it's so rare. I think it's rare for me anyway. I don't get down to the way tropics. I was in Belize, and I was with some of y'all have heard me talk about the Wicked Winches. We traveled together. We have for 20 years. And this was my first year, really, since I fell through that balcony at all the Bell House. But it's a really special thing. And all of y'all know you've got friends that aren't right where you are. I know that in my case and Carl's case, because he's a host who talks to people all over the country and world too. And, we make friends with people that we've never actually gotten to hug. And that's a real special place to be. And I think that when you get the chance, I think that's why we like Paracons and, in my case, UFO conferences so much, because there's so much that, you're actually getting to meet them. You're actually getting to see them, people that you haven't seen in years, especially after COVID, when we started being able to go out into conferences and stuff again. That makes a big difference. And I had uploaded a lot of files into my Google Drive, and when I tried to download them to my laptop, I can't get them over into our studio. And that is an operator trouble. That's not StreamYard's fault, because trust me, I love StreamYard. But this is strictly me, I'm sure. And I was getting a little frustrated. And sometimes when I get frustrated, my energy goes crazy. Carl will tell you that sometimes I break things just because I'm upset and I'm never using my hands. So that does happen. But I'm a lot of fun for Carl to produce. I'm going to tell you, I'm just lucky he hasn't, shot me over yet. But we're going to try to do this as sharing my screen, because we have got my favorite conference on the planet coming up, and it's in April. And I am so pumped. I was lining people up to do my own side interviews today, and y'all are going to love this. Because when I'm at these conferences, I try to share as much as I can. And I have a light that is being moody, and I really think it's whoever that is doing this. But anyway, maybe that's why my pictures won't download out of my Google Drive or from that file, because they are there. I'm sitting there looking at the files, and they're not pulling up. So there's that. But, it's called the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, and it is a long time thing. Fate has always been affiliated with it. I go as Fate Magazine and or Fate Magazine Radio, and I just love it because the people that run it, this publishing company publishes all kinds of things. This company was founded by Delores Cannon, who I just don't even know all the things to say about her. She started the I guess I did get bent out of shape. I'm just a little bit discombobulated. But we're going to pull her up because she deserves to have this stuff right. She was amazing. And her daughters are continuing in her vein. She started a particular kind of hypnotherapy. I have a lot of friends who do it, but it's almost like a quantum experience. And she specializes in past life regression, and her career as just a hypnotherapist was right at 50 years. And she was pretty amazing. She has written so many books. She is really she's really somebody who has inspired so many people. One of my favorite things that I've ever seen was a YouTube video from her, and it's called Manifest Your Dreams Now. And it's from Wake Up Humanity. Nothing is impossible. She's a full-on manifest your destiny person. And she can do all these past life regressions. And one of the things that I like is when this quote from her, which is, when I take people back in the sessions to find out, what you really are, they start playing and we don't. So it's just they see a little piece of themselves that is like, that's what their base is, and that's what they grow themselves through. I mean, I have a lot of friends who have gone through her training. Y'all heard Kathleen Martin on with me. She did that, does that. Julia, who is Dolores's daughter, does that. There's I'll get Julia on because it's been a while since we've talked. But anyway, these are the people that created this conference. And Delores, she didn't die until 2014. She was pretty amazing. And she was born in 1931. So she lived a long life. She lived a blessed life. She blessed a lot of people. And she brought a lot of people along with the new age kind of feel of their publishing house. And anytime that I get a chance to talk to people at this conference, in fact, Denise Pridemore came and saw me there. Then Tom McNicholas has come and seen me. It's really nice to get up and be in an area where my friends are, because it's just special. And Tom McNicholas is a special friend. I think so much of him that he probably doesn't know how much I think of him, but I really do. And it's just nice. It's just special when you get to meet people that you've seen online all that time. That's why I like conferences. But this year, excuse me, this year is going to be a lot of fun because I've got so many new people that I'm going to be meeting. I'm so sorry, guys. But, there's Mark D'Antonio, who is a good friend. He's going to be there. Jim Segala, who I don't know yet. I've been talking with his wife, getting everything scheduled. But Jim Segala was on Skinwalker's ranch, and he was strong on the Blind Frog ranch also. The guy loves mysteries, and he is so cool. He is he's somebody that I'm getting scheduled to actually just learn more about and hopefully be able to bring to you. His I'll open this. I'm not going to share this one, but he brings over 30 years of experience in science and engineering. He's a physicist, and I have a thing about talking to physicists, right? Stanton Friedman, one of my buddies when I miss so much. But Jim holds a PhD in physics and advanced degrees in engineering, and he's really advanced a lot of scientific disciplines. But for more than 10 years, he's been a senior researcher at the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin, and he's led pioneering investigations in radiobiology, quantum entanglement, I love that topic, quantum optics, vacuum polarization, and neurobiology. And his work in those areas has established him as a recognized authority in both academic and applied research communities. And he is well known in the media as a subject matter expert, featured in season 1 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, multiple episodes of National Geographic's UFOs Investigating the Unknown, and Discovery Channel's Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch, and some more of them too. And he's a frequent guest on podcasts, coming here, and a sought-after speaker at conferences, going there. And he's actually really well regarded, and that includes all areas of anomalous phenomena. So I'm really interested because he's and right now, unexplained injuries occurring under anomalous circumstances, unusual circumstances, and he's done it. Now, the person that I know who was doing a lot of work in the Uinta Basin in Utah passed away. And he had developed a really great UFO monitoring system as far as the cameras and stuff. But apparently Dr. Segala's research centers on comprehensive 3-year studies in the Uinta Basin. So I know there's a lot of UFO activity there. I know there's a lot of other anomalous activity there. So I am waiting to read this paper because that stuff cranks my boat, not going to lie. And to get a chance to talk to people that know a lot more about that than I do, and I read a lot, but I do not have his background, I think that's going to be absolutely interesting. And he also develops advanced computational models and complex systems across chemistry, biology, electrodynamics, and mechanics, which basically says that he's using science to evaluate these situations. I think that's cool because if we don't learn how to do that, people are always like, oh, well, you can't do this. You have to be able to accept the woo. And you can accept the woo, but you really need to be able to document where you can. And that's just my take on it. I am going to see what happens when I do this because these are, oh my goodness, y'all are going to die. I don't think I want you to see these. Just kidding. But these are Cat 30 pounds ago with no makeup. That's a little scary for y'all. So let me see what I do with this. And I've lost. Carl has stepped away for a moment. Let's see. Oh, there you are. So I'm going to come down here. Carl, do I need to make these images full screen and then click over? Just because. All right. Let me see what's going to happen. I need to get to where, because they were set up in a slideshow and they are just files because I didn't download appropriately into this. So I don't know what I'm looking at, Carl, until I open them.
Is it already in a slideshow?
The images from around.
Cat. Is it in a slideshow already?
You guys, y'all are so amazing. Thank you for being patient.
Hey, Cat.
And, I could sing and dance, but A, I don't have on shoes, so I might not be the best dancer with actually barefooting is a dance. So for all I think this might be a fiasco, but we're going to try. Now, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Share screen. Well, I don't want to share the windows. I want to share my actual screen. So I'm confused. Carl's trying to guide me here.
Cat, can you hear me?
What do I do?
Okay. Is your file set up
I
as a
can't hear you at all.
slideshow? Can you hear me?
Are you muted?
No.
No.
Everybody can hear me and see me. Can you hear me?
This is being terrible.
Oh. Let's see here.
I don't know why I can't hear you.
Check your audio. Yeah, Anthony, you can hear me, right? I'm trying to help Cat here.
And this is a really great picture.
She was hearing me earlier.
This one I
don't
could
know
just tell you
why.
says slow, dumb dogs, fast kids at play. So there's that. Carl,
Cat, can you
I
hear?
think that I am going to
Can you hear me?
figure something out here. I think that I'm going to talk about the people that I know who are coming to this conference, the people who have come to this conference in the past, who are some of my heroes. And one of the things that I like about what I do, and before I even started this, when I was very first starting to do event ghost hunting, I went to Sloss Furnace, and there was a woman doing a show, and she was doing a radio show from an investigation. And I'm not going to name the ghost hunting company because I don't like them. They're crap. But the woman, her name was Chase Klotsky. And we sat down and we became friends. I wasn't doing radio at the time. I was just a ghost hunter. I was looking for adventures. And so she was doing a live show, and we sat around and we talked for a bit. And then we became friends. We became friends that lasted forever. And Chase is somebody who evolved into such an amazing researcher in the UFO field. She did a comprehensive study. She went and got a degree in forensic science because she wanted to go to Bolivia and to have an opportunity to investigate the Paraca skulls, the elongated skulls. And there was also, at one time, it was called the Star Child skull. Hello, Anthony. Hi, Ari. Hey, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And, but Chase, everything she did, she was on fire for. And so she had the opportunity to go and did a journey with other people. I think, I'm not going to say, but I do know that her husband went along on this trip because Bolivia. And her husband was a naval officer who was a commander of a base. So he was pretty cool. But they did have problems with Chase being kind of accosted by military people there. But she did get out and everything went well. And she was able to get samples from all of these skulls. And the whole reason that she had gotten her forensics degree, she got them, she managed to get them out with her. She went to go and do her research on them. And there's no reason, Irene, it's so good to see you. There's no reason, for these things to have been like that. The standard is that people wrapped their heads on boards and made them grow like that. But there were differences. There were anomalous differences on those skulls from normal skulls. And when Chase later had an opportunity, she got to what is that called? The Star Child fetus skeleton. And she got an opportunity to do a study on that skeleton. And I actually did a show on the Star Child skeleton because it was not really expected to find. It was small, it was malformed, it was I'm trying to remember the country it was found. But the Star Child skull. And so it's part of a malformed human skull of a child who likely died as a result of congenital hydrocephalus. And got a lot of publicity after a paranormalist, Lloyd Pye, claimed it was of extraterrestrial origin. Now, I'm trying to find where this was actually found, but the skull was very unusual, and it did look like somebody who had that problem. And the cranium exhibits all the characteristics of a child who died of congenital hydrocephalus. And the cranial deformations were the result of accumulations of cerebrospinal fluid within the skull. Well, the testing was different when it was done in a dentistry forensic DNA lab in Vancouver than it was when other people tested it. So it's really one of those things that you don't know. But the actual shape of the Star Child skull is in the body of other creatures like that are found in Mexican deserts. And nobody knows what those are. It's just amazing. I'm not an expert on that, but I have talked to enough people to know that it's a bizarre thing. And it's really, when you read the things, it says who likely died of that, as opposed to being the skull of something that wasn't from here. And I guess either way can take your breath away. So, buffering part. problems and my video stopped moving. So that doesn't surprise me because this is a strange night and there's a lot of energy. But thank you for letting me know that. But I just find it interesting because there's so many places that these anomalous oh, I'm moving now. Yay. But there's so many places that these anomalous findings occur. And I find it very interesting that so many of them are in Central and South America. You know, when we talked to him, you know, recently when he passed away. But some of my favorite times were listening to him educate about the findings that he had there. And they included like the Nazca lines. He saw them before people were, you know, before they were a thing, before people were flying a lot. And, you know, because things that he read, he went to go look at. And then he'd go home and he'd work, make enough money, go find something else that he found anomalous and he wanted to look at. But the thing that got me when I would listen to him was that he saw these things when other people probably couldn't. And it just blows my mind that there's even discussion really about people, you know, sky people, because back then there were things that were being done to communicate with people who could only see it from above. And yet we're supposed to think that this stuff never happened and never was, which is kind of short-sighted. And that's why when I go to these UFO conferences, you know, contact in the desert, cut and dry, very little woo, discussing propulsion, discussing interactions, discussing all kinds of stuff. It's a really fun conference too. And it is out in Palm Springs, California, Indian Wells, which is they're right next to each other. But it's a great conference too. But the reason that I like Eureka Springs so much is that you can be sitting down to dinner with the speakers. They're right there with you to interact with. And, you know, Richard Dolan and his wife Tracy are some of the nicest people I've ever met. And they're just there. You know, one of the most fun things that I've had happen was walking into a room when Richard and Linda Moulton Howe were we're airing a show. And to watch these people, they are such good friends, to watch them interact together is a freaking riot because they're funny. And they have so much in common because they've been working together for so long that it's almost like, you know, like me and Rick McCollum. You know, we finish sentences every so often. We argue like brother and sister. We, you know, want to smack each other upside the head every so often, not very often. But, you know, when you find that camaraderie, especially in the fields that they're in, I mean, paranormal is one thing. Ufology is a whole different kettle of fish because there's a lot of ridicule. The harder people fight to keep you quiet, the more truth there is in what you're trying to say. And I have found that to be true all the way through this stuff. There are people that will back down and go away, and then their story is lost. And then you have people, a man named Calvin Parker, who recently passed away, was the Pascagoula UFO incident. He and his friend Charlie, And that was not something you talked about in Pascagoula, Mississippi way back then. And he went to the, because he thought that, I mean, there was blood. They were bleeding from what was done to them. And so he thought that he was dying. And he made Charlie Hicks go to the police and file a report, which was terrible because they were both skipping out on work and lost their jobs. But he wouldn't be quiet. Calvin would not be quiet because he knew something terrible had happened to him, and he needed to get documentation of that. So that was, sorry, dog stuff, but that was something that he had to do. And he kept quiet. Once they filed that report and he was being ridiculed, he just disappeared. He went silent until he had a bad diagnosis, and he wrote his book and he got everything out. I was fortunate enough to get to spend time with him and his beautiful wife, Wynette, in Phoenix, Arizona at a conference there. That's where we met. And it was fun because we were the only 3 people at that conference that sounded like us. And we struck up a friendship. And that was also where I got to know Mark D'Antonio. And he just thought they were charming too. So we all, spent time together. But, it's so rare that you have somebody who is actually physically harmed with documentation from an ET experience. And they were that. It was so scary for him. And until he died, he absolutely did not do anything to risk having another experience. I don't even know how frightened he must have been for that to be the case. He finally wrote a book about it, and that's where we met, was where he was presenting about that. But it was, he was terrified. And I think that, when our insides start being on the outside, right, then you've got something to contemplate. And it's so rare in my experience of listening to people share that, for there to be such a physical manifestation injury from ET interaction. You have people, Chris Bledsoe, who has this stuff happen to him all the time. I've talked with him. I've seen his videos. I'm not close enough to get up and experience that with them yet. But he videos ETs around his house, or UFO ETs too, constantly. And the way Bones talk, it shines light on things that we just find answers to mystery. Yeah. When we actually start having motivation, when we start having physical manifestations of this interaction, it becomes a lot more real, and we start getting a lot more serious with it, in my experience. I just think that it's so bizarre that it takes that. And people that have this happen to them are so quiet most of the time, because when they come forward, people are so unkind to them. They belittle them, they ridicule them, they think they're crazy, or say they think they're crazy. How many people has our government plowed over when they come forward with something? Not as much now, but it's been pretty rough for a lot of people. And when I have the chance to talk to people at these conferences, and I'm going to go ahead, because my friend Mark D'Antonio is going to be at this conference in April, and I'm going to pull up, let's see, what is that? Oh, Eureka. And yeah, it's funny because people that are going to be there knew I was going to be trying to talk about this stuff about the conference. And so there's that. But y'all heard, if you, excuse me, if you heard my interview with Stephen Bassett, when he had forgotten what time it was, forgot that he was coming in, he was all kinds of wigged out. He was doing his interview on his cell phone, and we had half of his face or he was sideways. It was such a riot, but good information though. And so he is going to be one of the keynote speakers when I get up to Arkansas. And I'm so excited about that because I like him. He's so smart. He's absolutely smart. He is actually one of those people who is trying to legislate to get this information public. And I think that's pretty cool because he's very smart. He is making it be a workaround, and I think it's so cool. But one of my heroes in this field. And then, of course, one of the other keynote speakers, Nick Pope has been advertised as being one of the primaries at this event. He is ill, and he is not going to be coming. But Mark D'Antonio, who is, again, one of my favorite people, is going to be the other keynote speaker. And his lecture is going to be, his talk is going to be From Here to There, the Search for Extraterrestrial Life. And he was very helpful during the comet experience that we were having earlier this year. And that he was one of the first people I knew who could show it to me, and all the other people listening too. Mark is a radio host as well. He's got his shows on Wednesday. I think he's moving back to Sunday, but which means that anything I get with him is going to be a pre-record for the next. That's going to be pretty interesting. And this is going to be fun because this is a woman who is a doctor. She's a dentist. And her name is Melinda Greer. There's two Melinda Greers in ufology. One is in Sedona, and this lady is not. She is in the Southeast. And I'm pretty interested to hear her lecture because it's going to be From Skeptic to Believer, the evolving perspective of an experiencer. And I find that just because somebody has an experience doesn't mean they trust that right off the bat. Right? Because we're conditioned to think, oh, well, there's something wrong with us. We've lost our minds. Oh, I must have hallucinated this. I must have been dreaming. No way was this a real thing, right? So I think that for a medical person to have an experience and come through it, that is going to be an interesting presentation to hear because I have no idea what she's going to say. And I'm really, really excited. A friend of mine is going to be here that I have not gotten to hear in so long, haven't gotten to speak with her in so long. But her name is Deborah Jordan Cobble. And she has been a lifelong experiencer. Her talk is going to be Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders. Her book is called Intruders. And there are a lot of times that people talk about a phantom pregnancy, and that happens a lot with experiencers. And so I think that it's going to be interesting because she had a pregnancy experience, and she's open about that. We will be talking about that. And I asked because I had somebody else who did that. And she actually had a relationship with her abductors. They kept coming back, and it was a real relationship. And she had a child. Oh, I'm freezing. Hey, Tom. Tom says I'm freezing too. but actually I'm in a sweater, so it shouldn't be too bad. But it's interesting because the the person that I'm referencing, her name is Nancy, and her child was brought back for her to visit with. He would come to see her. And with Deb, that had never been part of the conversation that we had. And so I had her on one night and I said, have you ever, do you feel like you've ever seen the child that you had this, they call phantom pregnancies if your doctor is involved? And she's like, I don't talk about that. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. She said, but I did think I saw her one day. It was a girl. And I said, get out of town. That is, thank you for saying that. Because, you know, Nancy said that her child would come and visit her. And people were just like, but Nancy actually had a relationship with her child's father. So that was kind of interesting to me too, because I'd not heard of that at that point. I always get so surprised by what I don't know. I don't know, but it's fun learning. So when Deb and I talked about that, it was real emotional for her. And I guess no one had asked that question of her before. But it's just it it makes you question your sanity when you start having these experiences. And then when it's a continuing experience, from what I gather from speaking with people that go through it, then you're developing a relationship with somebody who is way not there. You know, that when they're gone, they're way gone. So I don't know very many people, and I haven't asked, who have an ongoing relationship with their abductors, for lack of a better word. So I find that interesting too, because it's just one of those things that isn't spoken of very often, or in my experience, it's not spoken of very often. And you know, you come into the physical differences and the different communication styles, like telepathic versus verbal versus empathic. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do that. And it's just so bizarre. I think it's bizarre. I don't think my friends are bizarre. I think that the lives that they've led, the experiences that they've had, kind of get them there. And it's so cool. But we've got Ron Meyer and Alan McGargle coming on, and I've seen them coming on. Well, hopefully they'll be coming on. I've reached out to Alan already, but the whole thing, I've seen their presentations before. They're Bigfoot guys, and their discussion topic is strangeness of Bigfoot. And high strangeness is something that encompasses a lot. You'll hear Linda Moulton Howe use that term a lot. And it is what it is. I mean, it's interesting when you start thinking about the fact that a lot of Bigfoot people, when they have experiences, it's like you hear them over. I'm doing all of my hand signs here, so maybe I'll be ready for football season. The whole thing is that they seem to move very oddly in a lot of cases. I've had friends who had them be across a river, and all of a sudden they were not across the river, like teleporting kind of fast. I've had people that see them move and they blur. And favorite Bigfoot people, who is my friend Kimmy Hoholek, who is working with Jay Bayachin. They go out into the cattle moraine and they hear, they have seen, and to me, the way that the movement is described is so bizarre. And if I saw something that was bigger than me, could rip a tree up by the roots, and was obviously a carnivore as well as, not sometimes, it would just be a little bit much. And I don't mind UFOs. I don't mind ghosts. I hesitate around some people that do mystical things, because some of those are intention determines the outcome of that. And if somebody has ill intent, if it's not somebody I know really well, I'm not around them when they're practicing that. But something that is, in a lot of cases, at least 7 feet tall, that can move on a dime. I mean, they can just stop on a dime, they can just take off and be gone. I do not really want to go find that. I will look at other people's pictures. I will look at other people's experiences, hear them. But it trips me out. No lie. I think it's scary. But I have gone looking. Just not without big people with big protection. But I do like the fact that I like water spirits, because I'm a water person and water doesn't scare me. So I commune with dolphins. So why wouldn't somebody commune with a Bigfoot if they came across it? But to me, that's a lot like communing with a bear. And not yet. Maybe I'll get brave enough when I get older and don't care, right? But, Carl lives up in Missouri, and he hunts, and a lot of my friends do that. And, oh my gosh, Anthony Lewis just said, understand when you see fold itself in half, then disappear. Yes, that would trip me out. But I've heard that. Have you seen that, Anthony? Because I'm curious now. Just put it in chat. But, I have seen things in the water I didn't understand. I didn't know what they were. And I don't scuba. And very rarely do I snorkel anymore, because snorkels make my brain freak out, the sound. But I love the visions. I love the visuals of it. So sometimes I just suck it up and do it anyway. But there's so much that we don't know. And, my friend Rick, who y'all got to listen to the last 2 Sundays, was diving. Oh, yes, he saw the shadow in the forest do that. Holy snap, Anthony. That's cool. What area were you in? Or what state were you in? But Rick was diving off Key West and felt something come up and bump him, and turned around. It was a grouper as big as he was. So I know that my friend Max Hawthorne he loves to dive and he loves to fish for those, and Goliath groupers. And Tom McNicholas, I did not know you were a 3-time certified scuba diver. You are full of surprises. And Anthony said he was in South Carolina. I believe that in South Carolina, because I have seen things in North Carolina that I can't explain. And that's not that far away. My daughter lives in Charleston. So I'm planning on getting down there and doing a little bit of exploring too. The ghost hunting's good, but I think that the cryptid hunting would be too. And we go into the mountain areas of North Carolina. Anthony, my husband, plays poker, so we're in the Cherokee area a lot. And I have had experiences there that I couldn't explain. And I've also had experience with the Thomas Divide lights, which were interesting. That's probably my favorite non-spirit experience that I've had, because they came across the divide to me, and that was bizarre. It made me a little nervous, but it was cool. So it's interesting. I have not yeah, that area is very active. It's actually, I've been there, oh my goodness. Tom McNicholas dove the graveyard of the Atlantic off North Carolina. You're going to have to come on and talk to me about that, Tom, because I would love to have that conversation. But besides, you're due to come on anyway. But one of the things that I find is that no matter, I mean, a lot of things are relevant to time of year if it's something that's like an anniversary date or something like that. But if I'm doing outdoor things, experiences, and they're really affected by the time of year, then I worry that environmental or atmospheric issue that's creating the effect. And you kind of have to be able to rule that fact out, that possibility out, because it's hard when you are at the Thomas Divide lights. I have never had a time of year, didn't matter if it was cold, didn't matter if it was hot, didn't matter if it was, daylight savings time or not. If they're going to show, they're going to show. And I find it odd that I see them often, but one of the rangers who works at the station there at the park entrance almost didn't believe me, because she said that her kids had been trying to see them for over 18 years and had not ever seen them. And I have never gone there looking and not seen them. So, I mean, yeah, I have Native American heritage, but they obviously do. They live on the reservation and don't see them. So, am I just there at the right time? Is there something about my energy that pulls them? I don't know how to explain that. And I'm not finding a lot of background evidence to support either way in my research. So it's just so bizarre. And Anthony, if you are in North Carolina or South Carolina, what region are you? Well, the mountain area, but like, are you toward Georgia or? Because I know that when I lived in Georgia, we had things in our woods that were scary. I lived on a farm, and it was like 168 acres, and I didn't go in the woods at night because I didn't really like them in the daytime if I was by myself either. There was a lot of stuff there. And I used to, not the least of which we had a stalker for a while, but I would just be sitting there and feel like, well, I am just here and by myself, And I heard a panther scream, and something killed one of my dogs, and that was horrific. But I don't talk about that very much. But it's just crazy the things that you get into when you start getting off into woods. And I'm an urbanite. Except for in Tennessee, I've lived in a city or near a city. So when I went out to the country, I was all excited. I thought, oh, it's going to be so beautiful. It's going to be so quiet and calm, and nothing is going to be, weird. There's no, people just straggling around Stone trying to find money or whatever. And it's just like, oh my God, it is so not quiet and calm. The country is very loud. And Anthony says, also best once is when you hear your own name called and you're the only one around. Been there, done that. Once in the woods, a few times in my house. The woods one freaked me out. Didn't like that at all. So, and it's really funny. I'm actually very brave when it comes to my investigations because I try to have a controlled environment. I'm just doing my thing. I have had familial spirits call my name here, but I've not had that happen a lot outside. And it scared me because I was like, why is something calling me and why does it know my name? And it was just really interesting. One of the things that I can get it off, but one of the main things I did not know is, here's my Eureka Springs magnet. I have a whole slew of magnets. I love them. But I did not know that Bigfoot is a big deal there in Arkansas. So last year, when I was there with my partner in crime, Lori Dorsey, who, by the way, you are not going to see in chat tonight because she is on her way to her place in Gulf Shores. I converted her. She bought a place. But, it's so interesting to me that they're everywhere, not Lori's, Bigfoot, because I don't know one area, and Carl, you may, but I don't know an area that doesn't have Bigfoot activity of some type. I really believe in them because they are so widespread. There's so many people of all educational backgrounds, all woodsman skills or not, like me, and who have this experience. And when we start thinking cryptids, if we are if we're going to be honest with ourselves, if we're going to accept this one, then you have to revisit dogmen and wraiths, because I think wraiths are an outdoor thing. In my experience and listening to people, they are. And there's just so much that it just takes me aback. Heard your own name when you were the only one there. What I get fascinated by are places that have known UFO activity, known cryptid activity. Mount Shasta would spring to, on the West Coast. That springs to mind. I can't even fathom what that experience must be, because if you're out climbing and you see a craft go into the mountain, that would be something that would take you aback. And then you've got the possibility of, Sasquatch, and you've got the possibility of dogmen, all in this area. There is so much high strangeness in this area. And I have friends that love to go there. And I'm like, why? Are you coming home? Do you know that you're coming home? So it's just kind of fun to razz them a little bit. But when it gets in your blood and you have all these questions and you don't know how to get your answers, then you have to go looking. And that to me is, my husband kind of puts his foot down sometimes. And there's times I don't mind that he did, because I've got so much stuff around me. There's, I don't know if y'all remember when I had Trey Hudson on with me, when he talks about, the meadow. And He's got a book out and a video out now. So if you can find it, like I said, his name is Trey, Trey Hudson. And he sent me at one point some video of what happens there. And it's wild. Yeah, they weren't really expecting anything when they were out there the first time and they saw a craft. And people who were with them, the next few times, I guess, that they went, would walk near the craft and they would disappear from their night vision cameras and they'd just be gone. And then eventually they would show back up. And I think that's really interesting because it's not a normal craft. It's a very interesting style of craft. And it's not forever away from me. You know, it's a pretty good ways, but it's not so far that if there was something in the air, you shouldn't see it. And that stuff makes me interested too. You know, there's so much out there. You just don't know. And I'm completely off the topic of my stuff because you know, I'm really all about this conference. I'm so excited, guys. I mean, got my flights, got my room, got my car, got all the stuff ready to go. Got my, I don't have my sidekick going with me this time because she is all about getting to that beach. I don't blame her. I love getting to that beach too. And yes, I did ruin her. She is so beach addict now. But, you know, it's just so cool because there's a guy who is coming and I don't know him, but I have been watching him for some time now. And I think he's going to be fascinating. His name is Samuel Chong, and that's Chong. If you come across him, you can see him on some shows on YouTube. And I'm hoping I'm going to be having him on too, because UFOs and UAPs in China and what the Chinese have learned, extraterrestrial revelation of Earth's history and mysteries. And he is, I don't know how to say this. Let me see if I can find it, because the book that he's doing or that he's talking about, I read a long time ago. So long ago that I can't even remember how to say it. So frustrating. Oh my gosh, I still don't know how to say it. Thiaouba. Let me prophecy. And somebody sent me this not that long ago. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to have to learn about that. And there it is in chat. But when I started reading it, it's very mystical and very interesting. But it's relevant. It's just absolutely relevant to I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. I was reading his page. But you can find them you can find all these people on Facebook, and you can reach out to them if their topic. Go up there to Arkansas and participate. It's such a good conference, but it's just amazing. You know, when I was so lucky to be able to call Stanton Friedman my friend. And he was a physicist. He was the original Roswell civilian researcher. He wrote so many books. He was a physicist. He was smart. He was funny, very dry, and Canadian, and just one of the best people I've ever known. And I was so lucky that he liked me and wanted to teach me and had patience with me, because not everybody does that is in a scientific profession. And it's I have some friends that are very direct, and they'll catch me by surprise. They're like, do you really understand what blah 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 is and how that works? And I'm like, mostly. What you got? Educate me. And Mark D'Antonio is the worst for that. He is so funny. We were talking about something one day, and I was just like, well, but this does, but he was like, but are you sure? Yes, pretty sure. And so it always makes me go back over my homework again, because I'm like, oh, I hate it, because now he has 2 shows and they are both opposite my shows. And it's so hard to get him to skip, because everybody wants to talk to him. So I'm going to sit him down and see if I can lock him in on something, because if y'all don't know who he is so much fun. And he is an astronomer extraordinaire, and he is one of the smartest people I've ever known. And that's saying a lot, because I think my husband is the smartest person I know. But it's so fun to talk to people like that. And they're not always user friendly, but they're always a good time. So if you get a chance to talk to Mark D'Antonio, you do that, because he is brilliant, and he knows everything about a lot of stuff. He's pretty good on UAP stuff. He is the person that I first learned about USOs, unidentified submerged objects. And that's pretty much how Calvin Parker's experience began, because they saw, well, wasn't the object, it was the beings. Some people saw the creatures, aliens that came out of the craft swimming in the Pascagoula River under the piers that they were around, where the craft had landed by Calvin and his friend. So it's a bit interesting. That's not talked about a whole lot, but I was doing a presentation at a conference in South Alabama in Orange Beach, and I was talking about Calvin's particular case. And this woman, it was a nasty day. I couldn't believe people came from all over the Southeast to come and listen to that. It was a bad weather day. But this lady was like, do you know Calvin Parker? I was like, I do. She's like, well, is he still alive? I said, he is. He's still over in, the Pascagoula area. And she said, well, I saw that ship, that craft, the same one that he experienced. And we saw it coming in. We were coming across the bridge. And I just wanted him to know that people knew that he was telling the truth, because we saw it too. And you could have knocked me over with a feather, because Calvin's, they were not believed at first. And there were so many people that came forward to support their experience. And the fact that out of all the places in the world, this little lady who could confirm what he saw was in Orange Beach, Alabama, and a pouring horrible storm, come to listen to me talk about Calvin Parker. And so to me, that was just such a validation and such a cool thing to have happen, because he was doubted by a lot of people for a long time. And he really didn't even want to talk about it. His friend Charlie Higgins had done that. And so then Calvin decided that he was going to write a book about it, and did. And if you can find it, if I turn around, I'm going to have to look through that. So I'm going to cheat and just pull it up because, or maybe not, because my AI is trying to do all this stuff. And I don't know, I do not have any kind of AI open. Maybe it's my Google AI. Maybe it updated it. But when I read Calvin's book, I was really so taken. And the cover is young Calvin's face and one of the creatures, and it was so odd because his ETs, by the description, looked like the Michelin Man, but with claws instead of hands. So like an animatron or something. But the book is called Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story. And they've got it on Audible. They've got it any which way you want it. And I really think that I've heard two other people since I met Calvin talk about this type of creature. And they all said that they moved like people, that they weren't like the, the old back in the day robot things. But I really had not thought that when I first saw it. So then when I saw the graphic on the book, I was just kind of blown away. So there's that. But when you go to these places, yeah, whether it's Arizona, whether it's, Alabama, Arkansas, I love going to Pennsylvania to the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. That's one of my favorite conferences. But that's more of a meet your friends and, share experiences. It's not like a conference where you're sitting down and getting to hear that kind of stuff. But it's such a gift, really, to be able to come through and hear these people. If I hadn't gone to the UFO Congress in Phoenix, I would have never met Calvin Parker. And he affected my life a lot because A, he sounded like me, and B, his experience was so profound, it affected everything about him. And his wife, Wynette, is one of the most generous, kind, and loving people, and she stood right by him through all of that. It changed his world, his whole world. And there's actually now a monument to him and his experience there in Biloxi area, in Pascagoula. Yeah, it's in Pascagoula, but they're all right there together. So, but it is funny how something that he thought was so god awful that Charlie was trying to hide it. Calvin's like, no, we have to go to the police. This is real. This happened to us, and we're hurt. We have blood on us. We have to go to the police. And the way that he lived his life was straight up honorable. Things had to go a certain way. And that stood him in good stead through his, UFO encounter and for all of his life. Because when he came forward and wrote his book, and, Philip Mantle, who is in England, got him to do that. And if you don't know who Philip Mantle is, Google him. He is one of the nicest, most intelligent humans I know. But he he published Calvin's experience. And that's when Calvin decided to do that, that was so healing for him. And when I saw him in Phoenix, he had just pretty much recently done that. So we shared a lot of meals that weekend, Wynette and Calvin and I, and got to know each other and just chatted about his experience. And that's another thing, that if you go to a UFO conference, if you are a UFO experiencer, you will find people to share that with. The big ones, like Contact in the Desert, like the Phoenix UFO Congress. I didn't see that scheduled for this year, but I may have missed it. But these larger groups have experiencer groups, and they are facilitated by who is just a fantastic counselor. And she also does the quantum hypnosis, and that Delores Cannon started up, but or developed. But you can share your experiences with people who have had their own. If you're not an experiencer, you are not in that group. And I find that interesting. You know, I found out that, you know, when they talk about the implants that people get, that's a real thing, because I was not sure what I thought of that. And I thought, oh, well, that probably happens to a person who are there or whatever. And it's not just a person who are there. It's frequent. And I heard somebody who was a judge, retired military, became a judge, worked internationally as well as here. And he had implants in his leg, and he was a runner. And he found out about them because he was having trouble running. And so he went to his doctor, did an x-ray, and they found these pieces of metal in his leg. And there had been like little baby incision marks too. There's a scar. And so his doctor was like, well, what did you do? You know, but it affected his running. So that was something he had to take care of. But I found out that when I was in an experiencer group, one of the people had a drawing of their scar and showed where the metal pieces in their leg had been. And it was exactly what the other man had had. And these people, the other man was up in, you know, the Midwest, and these people were out in the desert and had the exact same experience with the exact same scar, because I saw both, you know, images and the same material in their body. So that kind of gave me pause. I was blown away. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh my God, this is not, there's no way this is real. It's so real. And, you know, I think that when you start looking at things that, and there are people who have an impeccable reputation and who are in positions that require them to have an impeccable sense of judgment as well as character. It's kind of something that will blow you away, or it blows me away, because when I first heard Whitley Strieber discuss his communion experience, I was just like, that's a lot. That's a lot. He was taken out of his home, like floated out of his home consistently. If you're not familiar with this story, his book is Communion, and it's really interesting. And I did a workshop with him out in California. it was the weirdest thing to me because we were talking about the different people's experiences and how so many are very similar, but there's a lot that are completely not, that are just completely off the wall, as it were, that you don't hear about very often. Like with Calvin, I had never heard of the Michelin Man kind of creature, and yet it was not unknown, not frequent, but not unknown. So I was just kind of like, oh, really? Really? And it was, yeah, really. But with Whitney, he did a meditation at the end of his workshop. And it was very personal to each person. And it was to just kind of open yourself up and be ready to experience whatever, whatever you came up with. And I don't do that real well in public. I'm very weird about sharing a lot of my energy with people. So that was something I struggled with there. But when we finished, to a person, the cover of Whitney's book has a gray alien, the head, the neck, and I've not really encountered that species personally. And yeah, even though Al back there, who is being bashful right now, but he's pretty close. But that was the vision that the people in that workshop got in that meditation. And I was like, well, don't steer that at me. I have my own stuff. I don't want that too. But it was interesting to me because it wasn't like we were, zoom, 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 give me the gray, there wasn't any of that. It was just kind of let your mind flow and, do your thing and be just contemplating, your experiences, things that you've blah, blah, blah. And I went up to him after that workshop and I was like, this is not my experience, but this is what I saw. He said, well, that doesn't surprise me. They do like to make themselves known. Well, okay. But that's something else too. If you're going to be doing something where you're meditating with other people, you still need to be able to shield and kind of control your environment, which doesn't mean you can be open to an experience. It's like if you're doing a group skywatch, right? If you've got all these people that are sitting outside, everybody's watching, looking for anything unusual in the sky. There's times that groupthink is a real thing. You can manifest your thoughts just like anybody else can. And if you have a whole group of people who are looking for a particular thing, you have to be cautious to make sure that that's not what's happening. Like with the seminar with Whitley, was everybody there envisioning his book cover because we're sitting there with him? I think that's a possibility because, like I said, I'd never encountered that species of alien before. So that wasn't something I would have anticipated bringing up from my perceived encounter. And so, but everybody there knew who he was and knew what his book looked like. So there's always that possibility. And that's something that you just have to be aware of and kind of anticipate maybe. But like if you're outside, you're in a desert somewhere or just an open field and you're doing a sky watch with friends or a group of people, and you have a perception of what you think a UFO is going to look like. And everybody there does, because maybe in this group you've been talking about the different craft and what's normally seen or whatever. It's easy to group think that. And because we're humans and because we have energy and because a lot of us do have manifestation abilities, even if we don't know it, we can do that. So always sign up for the Skywatch, right? But also always keep yourself centered while you do that, because getting a chance to actually see something is the best. Sometimes it's scary, but it's the best, And also, when somebody tells you that what you saw isn't what you saw, just say thanks and walk away. Because I've had that happen with an expert who, I live where there is an air refueling wing. We're just going to set this up. I see refuelers often. You've got this bay's open, or the nose is, and they've got the connection. And so they're moving together while they're being refueled. What they do not look like are two illuminated barrels that are just flying in tandem without a connection. Well, I was sitting outside and I had not seen Starlink at this point, right? And stop me if you've heard this, not really, because you probably have if you've listened to me for years. And if you're new, you haven't. But the whole thing was so cool because I want to see Starlink. I've never seen Starlink. I'm so excited. I see these two barrel-looking things flying in tandem. They're staggered like that. So I'm thinking, oh, that might be the air refuel. But that's not. They're too big. They're too round. They're too perfect. So, and yes, I am looking forward to that. But the weird thing was when I was in Phoenix, my friend Mark D'Antonio and I were sitting there talking, a guy brought up his cell phone with a video, and it looked just like that. And Mark, who is a video expert, told the guy that was Starlink. There's only two. Yes, I have a Band-Aid on. I'm not going to flip you off. But only two, not connected, moving in tandem in consistent speeds. And so Mark told the guy that was Starlink. So I see that outside, standing on my deck. It is so bright white. And so I run inside and I tell my husband, I just saw Starlink. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Well, I think for a year that I just saw Starlink. I'm so excited. So I'm back out in California. We're doing another Contact in the Desert. Mark D'Antonio is there. He and Ben, oh my goodness, one of the best men in the paranormal. But anyway, it'll come. We're doing a Skywatch thing. Well, in Phoenix, that's a neat trip because there's a lot of light. But anyway, they had just launched a Starlink. So they knew that was going to be coming over. And I was really excited to get to see one in the desert, right? I don't know why that made me excited, but it did. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. And there's like 26 of these little lights that are just solid line, just moving like that. No variation, no anything, just a straight line of little lights. And I'm like, oh. So I went over to Mark. I said, that's not a Starlink, is it? And he was like, yeah. I said, so, but there's a lot of them. He said, there's always going to be at least 22 to 26. And I'm like, You told that man in Phoenix that the two that he had on video were Starlink. And I was so excited because I had seen Starlink. And he was like, no, it would never be just two. I was like, you told him that. And he's like, no, I didn't. And I said, well, all righty then. So I came home and I told my husband, I said, that wasn't Starlink that I saw. I saw a Starlink. That wasn't it. And I'm very disappointed because now I don't know what to think. And so it was just like, wow. So always trust yourself. Even if somebody is an absolute walking genius who knows everything there is to know about, propulsion and astronomy and astrology, and, he is an astronomer. He is probably the best astronomer I've ever followed, paid attention to, known. But it was really disconcerting because trust yourself. And so I do want to know, Tom McNicholas, you're talking about the Disclosure Day. Have you watched The Age of Disclosure on Amazon? Because I watched that and I thought that was one of the best films I've ever seen. I knew the people in it, so that probably made me a little prejudiced. But I was surprised that there was so much information there because we are so, there's still, plausible deniability and stuff like that. But I am blown away that, and every bit of this had to be approved by our government. This was not just a random private film because every bit of it was classified until apparently it wasn't for this. And so when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, wait, why is he saying that? How is he saying this? And that was for most of the people in it because they all operate under non-disclosure contracts. And Tom, you have got to watch that. It is really my favorite. I love it. And it's all stuff that I've been hearing. And if you've been at UFO conferences, you've been hearing this stuff too. And if you haven't been at UFO conferences and you just hear the ever so often person, one of the television shows talk about these things, you've heard it too. And it's just so wild because all of this stuff, that's why I feel like we are going to either be having an event of alien interaction, or they're just going to come out and give us everything because they almost did in this film. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching Leslie Kean, who is just one of the most brilliant reporters on the planet, talk about things. And I'm seeing, people that are my friends who are saying stuff that last I heard, they weren't supposed to be talking about, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, are you serious that you can talk about this in public? Seriously. And, it's Lou Elizondo is somebody who I'm surprised is able to say what he says. And I do know my opinion. I'm not going to say I know. I'm going to say my opinion, just safe side. But when he came out and went public, I felt like that was the kickoff of disclosure, real disclosure, because this was a military man who had gone into the private sector and was discussing what the military had kept very close. I think that's a good way to put that. And he was, nobody did anything to him. So I was kind of waiting for that. And my friend Chase Klotsky, the woman that I told you was doing the broadcast at the ghost hunt at Sloss, turns out the radio show that she was doing was Fate Magazine. She was the host of Fate Magazine before me. So anyway, so she and Lou were friends, and she was doing a lot of work with him prior to all of this stuff getting really talked about. And so I'm just like, get out of town. You know, I saw them at an event, and they were very chummy and chatty, and you know, it was just the most interesting thing, because I had no idea that this was where this topic was filmed, that was aired at that event. And there was a lot of information that was there. And it was just bizarre. Anything by Steven Spielberg will be good and fully researched. That's very true. I love Spielberg's work. But although E.T. was kind of short. So, but I just think it's interesting. We have been so close to full disclosure. We, you know, that word is a trigger word, right? We're waiting on an alien to be presented to us. We're waiting on a craft to be presented to us. That's what people are expecting as disclosure. And the film that we just watched on Amazon recently was disclosure. And it's not the age of disclosure. It is disclosure. You know, the things that were brought out in it that people are like, well, but this did this and this did that. Well, it's really there. And I thought it was very bold. Like I said, I was not anticipating the things that were being said there. When they shared the films from the hearings, you know, I always thought when they were doing the hearings on the Hill, when, who was that? Was it Nancy Mace? I don't think so. But when they said, you know, were there, you know, bodies, basically? So yes, there were. Oh, were there biologics, talking about in the crashes? Were there biologics? Said yes, there were biologics. And she said, were they human biologics? She said they were not human. And that was enough to, I mean, what else do you need, right? That was your disclosure. If they're non-human biologics, I mean, there's not going to be pigs, horses, or cows in a spacecraft that crashes. So, yeah, that anybody that thinks that that's not full disclosure is mistaken, in my opinion. But that's just me. So, anyway, I hate that my light went out. It's driving me crazy. So, you know, what do you think? I mean, we've got people here in chat. We've got people that are listening, and you can reach out to me on Facebook and share your thoughts on this too. But, you know, I really think that we're living in such a cool, wicked cool time. And, you know, we've got Steve Bassett, he is going to be, like I said, the keynote speaker in Arkansas. And he is one of the leading, petitioning on Capitol Hill for this full disclosure. So I can't wait to talk to him about this film, because I have watched him at conferences, and if there are authors who are sharing their experience or who are trying, he will help them with a publicist, get them in touch with somebody to get their information out there so that more people are exposed to it. He's helping them to help us. And what I'm always surprised when people think that everybody is trying to hide this. Everybody is not trying to hide this. And Steve is a registered, what do you call that? The people that can go and, try to get Congress to see their side of things. What is that? I hate when my brain just goes. But anyway, he is out like kind of petitioning for people to come out in the open with this. And I saw him talk to some authors that I knew at a conference. And I went up to him before I left and I said, I just want you to know that I saw what you did there. And you are trying to help these people come out into the mainstream with their work, because by their work becoming mainstream, the conversation is too. And I think that's so cool that you're doing that. And I just want you to know that you don't know who I am, but I'm paying attention. I think that you rock totally. And he was just like, thank you. Thank you for knowing that and noticing that. And so when I approached him to come on the show, he did. I'll bet he was in a deli on his cell phone and he was like sideways doing stuff. Carl, do you remember that show where there were just sides of his face in the picture and stuff? It was so fun. But you can't touch the conversation. The video sucked, but the conversation was great. And there are people like him all over. He is the only licensed person to do that in Congress. He's my friend Chase used to do that. Let's see if I can pull this up. Just talk amongst yourselves while I sit here and type this in. To lobby. He can lobby. The right to petition. We all have a right to petition, but this would be lobbying. He's licensed to lobby relevant to UFOs. And I had not known anybody else that did that, except for my friend Chase, who was a lobbyist, a licensed lobbyist up there too. And she is the person who went and got her degree to be able to do the work on the skulls. So she's very out there and one of the people that I admire the most on the planet. So cool chick. So, and I'm so glad that, because all I knew was that she was a radio host. I didn't know it was Fate magazine. And so years later, as our friendship grew, and she had moved on at that point, and a very interesting person was the host of Fate magazine before I got it. And But Chase and I were talking, and she was like, "It's so cool that you're the host of Fate Magazine Radio." And I was like, "I know. I love it." And she's like, "Well, that's what I was doing the night we met." I was like, "Really? That is the coolest thing ever." And she has gone so far with her work. And now she's retired, Pete's retired, and Chase, I just love you. But she's the reason for my interest in ufology, because I was a paranormal investigator forever and a day. And when I've got to know Chase a little bit, ufology came my way. And then with becoming the host of Fate Magazine, that opened a lot of doors into that topic that allowed me to talk to people that knew a lot more about it than I ever dreamed that there was to know. And I think that that's why that's become, probably in large part for my research, it's a primary focus. For just getting out and doing stuff, ghost hunting is still a lot of fun and very educational. So, and I keep getting new toys and tools, and now I have a rechargeable, and get this because you know you need it, but a rechargeable K2 meter. And it is thebomb.com. No more batteries, no more having to, yeah, I do still have the batteries for if this one dies. I still have the battery operated ones, or to triangulate. But you need a rechargeable K2 meter, and Amazon has them, and they are not very much money. I've already told Lori that she needs one when we go out and do that. And Tom McNicholas, you need one. But you know, I'm just so lucky. And this is the season for these events. If you want to go to a UFO conference, you will find one somewhere near you. I found one in Scotland. I did. 2 years ago, I was at the Scottish Paranormal and UFO Conference. So if you want to go and learn about this stuff, there are so many places. So many places. And, you know, with the UFO conference that I'm going to next month, there's they're going to have vendors. They have people that do numerology charts. They have people that do, they're going to have people that do tarot. And one of the women that are part of the organizing of this said that she's looking forward to that because they have tarot sets that she's never even heard of, which she's worked at this thing forever. I don't even know what they would have that she wouldn't know of, but they're going to be there. And the vendors market is free to enter. You can do that all day long. And, you know, the social media, there's Facebook, there's everything. Like I said, Nick Pope is not going to be able to be there. He is ill. So he is, they just said due to unforeseen circumstances, he will not be able to attend this year. But I hope he's there next year, because I had messaged him about, I emailed him with him today some about a show. And I did not know that he wasn't feeling up to it. So he is just going to be sitting this one out. And I think that if you get a chance to see anybody who is affiliated with Ancient Aliens, I have watched that show forever. I have participated in, I was media for the very first 2 Alien Cons, which was a definite treat and a blessing. And I appreciated that so much. And then they started kind of interfering with other things that I wanted to do, like travel. And but I was in Santa Clarita, outside of San Francisco, for the first one, where they expected maybe 3,000 people and got 9. So that poor little convention center was so overwhelmed. And then I was at the second one, which was in Pasadena at their event center, which was much better able to handle that. And that was also the first time I met Troy Taylor, who is very nice. But Anthony Peak. Yes, I love Anthony Peak. I've got his card, actually. He has been a speaker, and he is so good. And Noreen, thank you for putting that out there. And if you talk to him, would you tell him I said hello? Because I really liked him too. And said he's been a speaker a few times. I was there the first time he was there. And he loves it because it's a gathering of so many people with a wide variety of ideas and experiences. And it is. Like I said, if you can get to these, the Ozark Mountain Festival or UFO Conference is a much smaller event, smaller venue, less speakers, very strong camaraderie. And like I said, the caliber of their speakers is fantastic. Just because it's small doesn't mean that it's not wonderful. And like I said, that's where Stanton Friedman and I got to actually meet for the first time. We had been friends for a while prior to that. And then I've gotten to meet Nick Pope. That's where I first met John Alexander, who is just brilliant. If you don't know who he is, check him out. He is a retired colonel, I think it is, but he was brilliant. And you grew up with Anthony. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, please pass that on. I enjoyed him so much. But it's really, the big ones are great. The small ones are wonderful. This is a middle-sized one. And I've seen Linda Moulton Howe there. That's where I got to meet Richard Dolan and his beautiful wife, Tracy. And, it's where I met Mark D'Antonio, who you probably see on Ancient Aliens and all the other shows too. But it's just such a real gift to be able to go to these. Anthony was at Contact in the Desert, which is probably the largest. UFO Congress was pretty big too, but I think Contact is larger. And if you can get to one of the big ones, you will be blown away. And if you're an experiencer and you need to have somebody to talk to about that, you'll find someone at every one of them. They're experiencer groups. The MUFON symposium is very good also. But I had a good time in Phoenix, and they had MUFON facilitators for experiencer support. So that was cool. Anytime that you can help somebody that might be struggling, it's always a good thing. But does anybody have a question about this? Because we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to make sure that you had some idea about what kind of things I was going to be doing here in the next few little bit. And, just kind of keep Nick Pope in your minds, because that's a really, really fantastically nice man. He is so kind and really good at what he does. So, like I said, I'm excited to see Steve Fassett. I'm really curious about Sam Chong, Dr. Chong. That's not somebody that I've gotten a chance to talk to yet. So when they had the speaker panel where they have all of them up there and you get to ask questions, and everybody is just so nice and more than happy to share with you. So that's great also. And they do that at all the conferences. The last day is a Q&A with the, and you've just got to go. It's the coolest thing on the planet. And contact is a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. It is outside of Los Angeles and Palm Springs, Indian Wells. The hotel is Indian Wells, but they're right together. And don't fly into LAX. There's a little airport outside. And Rick McCullum is going to be so disappointed that I can't think of the name of it right now. But do not fly into LAX. Fly into the little airport, grab your car, and it's only like a 45-minute drive to get to the venue. And you'll love the venue. So if you go into Ozark, you're going to fly into Little Rock and either get a transport or get a car, because it's a little bit of a ride up a mountain. And you'll be right there in one of the coolest towns ever. And there's great ghost hunting up there too. Lori and I last year went to the Basin Park Hotel and did a full investigation, and it was fun and active. So that's a cool place to go. But all of Eureka Springs is cool. So the hotel is great. They have a restaurant, and the venue is just down, the event venue is just down at the bottom of the parking lot. So you can just walk everywhere. You can walk into town if you're a party and have a good time. But anyway, we are just about out of time. I just want to tell you, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry my plans got changed, but that happens on occasion. And I'm just glad you're here. And I will see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. And I do Paranormal Experience on Wednesday nights also. Same time, same channel. So be blessed. Have a great week. Namaste. And we'll see you next time. Good night.